Welcome into Discern. My name is Ross. It is Wednesday, December 8th. We are joined again by Mark Turman, who's filling in for Jim Denison. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Ross. How are you? It's great to be here today.
I'm doing well. We talked about yesterday. Mark's going to be joining us this week and helping us unpack the news and explore culture and look for their biblical perspective. So the topic for today is going to be all about the Olympics. It's all over the news. It's something that has been a story for months now and going further back than that. And the Olympics actually coming up in February, which is, and my kids are like, "What, didn't we just have the Olympics?"
Yeah,
I'm trying to explain.
Yeah, I'm kind of with them. I didn't even realize that we were going to be having the Olympics in a couple of months, first part of February. Usually you see a whole lot more advertisement and attention. And so it caught me a little bit off guard today to realize that there was any controversy, but that it was actually just about 60 days away before the Winter Olympics start in Beijing. So guess we'll have something else to watch when the Super Bowl's over.
Yeah, I think there's something strategic about that timing. It's almost like the marketers know what they're doing when it comes to that. But as you say, there is a boycott in the news, and that's what we're going to visit about today. So today's story is from CNN. The Biden administration will not send an official U.S. delegation to the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing as a statement against China's, quote, ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity in Xinjiang, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Monday. U.S. athletes will still be allowed to compete in the Olympics, but the administration will not be sending government officials to the Games. The same policy applies for the Paralympic Games, which are also taking place in Beijing. So, Mark, this is a pretty significant position for the U.S. to take. And in fact, the White House said later in this article that they're looking to send a, quote, clear message that the human rights abuses in China mean there cannot be business as usual, Psaki told reporters at a White House briefing. So can you just give us a rundown on kind of the background here and why this is such a significant ruling from our administration?
Yeah, Ross, as I understand it, we're always seeing a lot of tension and positioning between China and the United States. Obviously, the two remaining superpowers in the world, and we know that China has certain ambitions that they've been working on for decades now, and that they continue to work out to work their way to a place of being the world's strongest economy and to drive things from that position. And I think this is an example of how our two countries tend to wrangle with each other, especially in recent months. There's been a lot in the news about controversies around Taiwan and around North Korea. And we have differing plans and agendas and hopes compared to what the Chinese Communist Party have. But this is one of those tools, I think, in which nations have a way of trying to hold each other accountable. And one of the best things, I think, about the United States over the years has been our desire to try to use our influence to expose and to improve the conditions of people around the world who are being oppressed.
Can you describe more what's been unearthed that we're trying to bring attention to?
Yeah, I don't know all the details, but charges of genocide are certainly a part of that, as well as, I think, possible human slavery. And those kinds of things, obviously, in a country as vast and as populated as China, there's all kinds of opportunities where groups that are in power have the opportunity, if not the desire, to leverage their position against others. That's really somewhat at the heart, I think, of the conflict between China and Taiwan, is that those who are different from those who are in power are being subject at times to things that can be cruel and can be really something that the world should take note of and should try to change.
So as you say, the U.S. is in a position to use this situation to bring some injustice to light, some pretty significant issues that are happening in China. But some would say it's communist China. Why should they care? Why will they care about this boycott?
As I understand it, in the mindset of the Chinese Communist Party, they believe their rulers and their government to be basically infallible, and they like to present and to position themselves in that light, that whatever they decide is what should happen in virtually all cases. And so China is very much a shame culture, and they, out of that, have a great desire to be seen in a certain way, not only among themselves, but by the world. So I think that's the first thing, is they're concerned about their reputation around the world. Obviously, I think it ties back into their economic ambition as well. We buy so many things, not only the United States, but people around the world buy so many things from the Chinese, and that's fine. We believe in free competition within the markets. That's great. But even in our country, especially among younger generations, I would say, we're seeing more and more a sensitivity that, yes, I might want to buy this or that product, but I'm concerned about how that product was produced. I'm concerned about where it was produced, and was it produced by people who are free to choose their job? Is it being produced by someone that's being paid a fair wage? And there's much more concern, I think, growing in all of our awareness that not only are we able to get things that we like to have that improve our lives and that bring us joy, but we're concerned about where they came from and how they arrived at our door.
Yeah, it's definitely a measure of accountability that it seems the U.S. is attempting to put into play. And we've talked about a lot. A common theme we hit on Discern is just this idea that sin will eventually come to light. And sometimes it takes time and external forces, and that's kind of the case here with the U.S. I think it's a good thing to just always keep in mind is we just think about our own sin and the fact that there's likely people, hopefully there's people that are around us that hold us accountable. Can you speak to that? Can you speak to ways that we can be more open or aware when we are being held accountable for a sin or a potential sin?
Yeah, I think this is a great illustration of that. One of the good things about having more than one superpower in the world is that they can work to hold each other accountable and hopefully toward the best things that bless people and bless the world. But on a personal basis, that's also true, that we ought to seek the kind of humility that this story illustrates, that there are things that we all need to be accountable for and accountable to. And hopefully all of us are having people in our lives that we're giving our accountability to and asking them, giving them the authority to ask us hard questions. That certainly is going on in various kinds of scandals and institutions within our society. And actually, as I heard a theologian by the name of Curtis Chang mention in another podcast, that when we see these things being exposed, that's actually an example of the gospel at work, that we're revealing the reality of sin, whether it's in our own lives or whether it's in our own organizations or institutions or even in countries, that God has a way, as Jesus said, of bringing those things that are in the dark, that are wrong and that are harmful, He brings them into the light. And personally, when that happens, when one of those people that we've given permission to or that has charge over us, when they start asking us hard questions, our position should not be one of defensiveness, but rather of humility, of listening, and being willing to take that to prayer and being willing to be accountable so that we can stay moving in the direction that God would want us to go, and that we use our influence in that same kind of way.
Which can be challenging. Anytime you're confronted with something that you're not seeing in yourself, it can be challenging to have that kind of humility.
And I don't think any of us like to be wrong. And, there's an old joke about a union leader named Jimmy Hoffa that he one time said, "I have my faults, but being wrong isn't one of them." Well, all of us are wrong sometimes. And having an awareness of that and a humility about that, being willing to search our own souls. The Bible says in the book of Psalms, God, search me and know me, try me and see if there is any harmful way in me. If we can do that as individuals, if we can learn to create processes of doing that in institutions and within governments, we'll be a lot better off, I think.
And certainly to do that well, we need a community around us that's engaged in our lives enough to even be able to point that out. And so, if you find yourself with no one around you that will confront you with those things, then that may be something to explore, because we certainly need community around us, and not just to point things out that are wrong, but also just to encourage where that's needed and to love us well. And as you say, to live out the gospel.
Yeah, I think, Ross, community is vital, and that's why God created the church, was to put us into loving faith communities that were built upon Him, built upon truth, and that help us to see some of our blind spots and help us to have an environment that's full of encouragement, that helps us to get stronger, even as we walk in humility together. I think that's what the church is all about.
Well, this has been a really good conversation here on the importance of community and accountability, but also in light of the boycott story, just kind of a reminder that God can use entities and organizations and people that have been put into power to provide that accountability as well. And so it's a helpful perspective as we understand what's going on with China and the tension between the countries, and certainly something we'll likely follow again in the future. So that is our show for today. We'll be back here again tomorrow with Mark, and we'll see everyone right back here on Discern.